I want to introduce you to a woman whose story is as courageous as it is heartbreaking, and as inspiring as it is real. I first met Nishani Ford at the table of 12 earlier this year, where she opened up her heart and shared a journey that moved every single one of us. Nishani has endured the unimaginable. She and her son have both lived through the trauma of gender-based violence. Her sons are in battle with addiction, brought further layers of pain, sacrifice, and resilience to their family story. Out of this darkness, Nishani found the courage to put her journey into words, writing the book Wholehearted, a testament not only to the survival, but to the deep ongoing work of healing. What struck me the most when she shared her story was the raw honesty and the deep humanity she came into the room with. She gave us the window into what it truly means to endure, to sacrifice, to heal, and above all, to lead with courage. It is an honor to bring you the story of Nishani Ford. Before we dive into today's conversation, a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Your support helps us share powerful stories, spark important dialogue, and amplify voices that matter. We're proud to partner with brands that believe in our mission and invest in meaningful conversations. Nishani, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Carmen. Very, very privileged to be here.
So I did say to you, one day I'm going to bring you onto the show, and that time has now arrived. And I think, with Darshini's table of 12,
yes.
And how you took us through your journey was such a profound thing, and it never left me. And I think we all can learn from each other's journeys. And there's parts of your journey that, we all could relate to because we've seen it somewhere or we experienced it somewhere. And I wanna kick off with the Nishani, the resilient Nishani that you are. Tell me a little bit about how you got into this corporate career of yours, and what was like that catalyst moment where you realized, hang on, I belong here.
Yeah. So mine is a story. Well, I'm a village girl, really, Carmen. I come from a one-street village, the eldest of 6 children. And it's kind of after my first year of studying computer programming, can you believe it? My father had a very sobering conversation with me that said, you know what, you've either got to agree to an arranged marriage or go and help support the family.
Sure.
And, of course, I didn't agree to the marriage. Just wasn't who I was. But what it meant was that I had to find work quite quickly. And so my first job, if I tell you the story, is quite funny because I had to take 4 minibus taxis over some very notorious places in Warwick Avenue, in Durban, over that bridge, and landed up in a center called the Pavilion. Now, it gives away my age, but it was just in construction. And I'd heard that they were hiring individuals to work in a retail store, a fairly large retail store. No Google at that time, so I used my network, found out who the store manager was, got into 4 minibus taxis, walked onto the construction site with a hard hat in hand, and knocked on the door and said, I have a meeting with Mr. X. Mr. Blue Eyes, to be honest with you. He was gorgeous. And so I entered. I had no meeting. I sat in the waiting room, and he came and he found me and he said, oh, I'm so sorry. We've hired all our casual workers for today. We won't be needing you. And I said to him, no. I'm here with a proposal. There's going to be foot traffic coming to your store. I'm going to be opening accounts for you. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to open these accounts, and you just pay me on the successful accounts, and you just pay me a commission. He couldn't say no. I left with 200 forms. I was back by the weekend, and I was earning money before that store even opened.
Sure.
But what that meant was that set the trajectory of the life that I would be leading. Because even at 19 years old, I knew I wasn't going to be a victim. I knew that when a no hit me on the door, that I was going to find a way.
Amazing. You see, the resilience is there. Like, I love it. And funny enough, I actually grew up in Durban, and I used to work in the Pavilion as well. I used to work at Spur many yonks and years ago. So I can kind of like picture the story as you tell it. Okay, so take us through you say that you arrange marriages. How did this happen and work in your family? Like, tell us a little bit culturally. Like, is this a norm, in your family, in your tradition?
It is. It was kind of a norm. I mean, look, 30, 35 years ago, for parents to get involved and to accept proposals for marriage. I saw it as a way out of poverty. Because the man would kind of come alongside and, just help the family along. It would mean that I needed to give up a career and become a housewife, which I wasn't prepared to do. Yeah.
And tell me, and your siblings, how many siblings? Are you all daughters or?
We are 5 girls and a boy.
Oh, okay. So there's meaning to get out of the family. No wonder arranged marriage. Okay, so let's fast forward to finding love.
This is the best story. So can you imagine? It's 1995 and South Africa's just embraced democracy. And I find myself again, this village girl who's never even had a sleepover at a friend's house, on a ship, which was my dream, called the Doulos. It had 120 staff members from 80 different nationalities. I find myself on board for a short-term exposure program, traveling South Africa, working and living in what we would call today immersion experiences, and just doing community work, sharing God's love, and just living out there, And then I met him, of course. He was over 6 feet tall, blue eyes, skin of an olive god. And he was gorgeous. And before you knew it, I was head over heels in love. And within probably a period of that first year, we were married. And lived in a beach cottage directly across the road from the ocean. Didn't even own a TV. Life was blissful that first year. And that's how I found love. Until, we were going to have our first baby, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences again. My parents' first grandchild, and I was in bliss mode. I would say in a little bubble, until I brought my baby home at 6 days old. And it started with verbal abuse, and it hit me. It's like a ton of bricks, because I had never heard him speak like this. I wasn't raised like that. And I went into a complete shock, And in retrospect, I guess, my son was 6 days old. That was the time I should have picked up my baby and ran. But I didn't.
Sure.
Over time, I kind of made excuses for his behavior. He was an army man, a military man. The country was changing. He was a white male. He was downscaled from the army. The focus was changing in South Africa. It was difficult for him to find work. And, he became more and more angry at the world, which meant that I became his outlet or punching bag. And Carmen, I wish I could say to you, I left. Like I left and I was great and, it was wonderful. But I didn't. I stayed 13 years and had another baby, trying to make this work, firstly, because I'll never forget it. It was, I loved him. I loved my abuser. And, if you look at the stats, most people are with people who they love. And I just had such hope in that love and sharing a life together with him. But I continued to make excuses for his bad behavior and continued to give chances and chances. And I paid a very high price for that, until I think it was in 2007, and I was working in a corporate in South Africa at that stage. And I remember waking up and writing the poem that says, "Where are you?" she screams, trapped within a cage. I need to break free, to be who I am. The woman in the depth of my core screams, set me free. Do I have the courage to let her go? Am I afraid of what her great freedom would mean to the world? Courage, courage, she screams. Set me free to be magnificent, celebrated me. And I remember writing that poem down in the middle of in the middle of my sleep and turning around in my bed and looking at the beautiful face of my abuser. And that was the beginning of the end. Sure. It still took me 3 years to leave him.
So I wanna go slightly back because immediately you think mental health. Was it a mental health crisis? Like, what was going on? Because it sounds like everything was just perfect, like madly in love.
Yes.
Just had a baby.
Yes. Just got off the ships, traveled South Africa, experienced democracy on the ground.
I'm like, could this have been a mental health crisis? Do you have, like, reflecting back, and even even if it was, we also need to take into consideration of the impact that this has, not just on home life, but on everybody outside of home life. Like, how does this even move into corporate world? Like, toxic abusers. I mean, I'm always thinking about this. I wondered if you could perhaps share from your perspective.
It was mental health. I mean,
Okay.
there were anger recovery, there was therapy, there was a whole host of things that were going on, something they called high chair syndrome, when a child comes into the picture and he has to take a second place, as well as all the financial strain and things like that. But even through the mental health, there is no excuse for lashing out. You know, when I speak about GBV and I look at it now, sort of maybe 30 years later, when I look at it now, 30 years ago, there was very little outlet for men to have safe spaces.
Yes.
Right? And he was an army man, a fourth generation army man. It was very difficult for him to show any form of vulnerability, let alone feelings. And so it became, and I'm not making any excuses for his behavior, but it became something that boiled and boiled within him. And, you know, I always say to my children, you were made in love, and your father loved you, but he could not love you the way you needed to be loved.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I believe. And that's what I believed. He was hurting. He was broken. So now, if you look at the GBV, you look at the one side of GBV and how the stats are increasing and how heartbreaking it is. If you flip the coin, it's saying to us that our men are wounded. Because healthy men would never do that.
Yeah.
Healthy, good men would never do that. But what it's saying to us is that if we want systemic change, both in the corporate world, because it does play out in the corporate world.
Absolutely.
And if we want systemic change, we've got to start working with men. This is not a woman's issue.
Totally. And, you know, I want to almost circle back to military.
Yeah.
You know, military, and I've seen it in my family and my grandparents, and the impact of the violence of my mother's father when he came back from the war, and it was the Second World War, and so they see things out there.
Yeah,
they have to. You know, I'm going to be quite controversial right now. So if you look, for example, when people go out to war, they have to murder, kill, protect, and follow instructions from the highest levels, do things that goes against their value system.
Yes.
And I often think about AI in this way. Do you know, like with AI, that you have to manipulate it, lie to it, deceive it in order to get the best results out of it? And it's like you want to unlearn like all of these things, but yet you have to apply it somewhere. And I think, and I mean, like I'm going a little bit off a little yellow brick road there. But what I'm trying to allude to is the rehabilitation that doesn't happen for people when they come back from war. And I'm not trying to disregard his journey, but the impact that it has on the family when they return.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
And if you think about it, back in the day, if you take a young school leaver who's only 17, 18 years old, think about kids these days, boys these days that are that age, and you take them off and you give them a year's military training and make them a man. Make them a man in what way?
Exactly.
In what toxic masculine way? And I think that bred toxicity. And it hurt people. It hurt people tremendously. And young teenage boys were being made to see and do things that were unheard of.
Yeah. And I mean, we see this in African cultures as well. There's many of those stories going around. But I want to get back into your story. So what was that tipping point? Because you talk about, you looked at your beautiful abuser You just looked at him and
I loved him.
And then took you 3 years to leave. What changed? What was the thing that said no more? I'm out.
So those 3 years was, firstly, was planning an exit.
Okay.
It was my exit strategy. So I couldn't leave. I didn't have the strength to leave. I didn't have the financial capacity to leave. I couldn't leave on the whim. I couldn't, But for those 3 years, let me tell you firstly what was the tipping point. We had an argument and he pinned me against the wall.
Sure.
And he had a knife to my throat. And from the corner of my eyes, I saw my 2 boys cowering in the corner. And they were young. They were really young. They were under 7 or 8 years old, something like that. And I looked at them and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die right here in front of my children, right here. And what's going to happen to them? But you know what was the saddest part? I thought, they don't know who I am. Because I had lived my life walking on eggshells and trying to keep the peace, if you want to call it. They've never seen me laugh. They've never seen me dance. They've never seen this resilient, strong, chickaboo, gutsy, get out there girl. They didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was. I'd been lost in that conundrum, And I thought, gosh, they won't even know who their mother is. And I'm going to die. And that was a tipping point for me. And so I started a 3-year strategy in my own head, where I started to report all my cases, build up all my cases, get doctors' reports, build up my case for court, because I did my own divorce,
Sure.
Build up my I didn't have funds for a lawyer, so build up my own case and started to kind of save money where I could, started to say, okay, this is what could happen. I went back and I started studying. I was 36 at that time, and I started studying 4 practitioners courses through the universities, in which I plowed into my education, because I knew that there were certain dreams I wanted my kids to have. I wanted them to have a certain level of schooling. I wanted them to have a certain level of, I wanted overseas trips for them, all of those things. I still had dreams that I was fighting for, and I knew that I had to position myself financially in order to win them over.
So, we had First for Women come and talk to us about what happens on the ground and the work that they are doing there. And, one of the big things is this financial independence that women don't have, and how they stay trapped. We had Netbank that is also doing a lot of work trying to create awareness around money and how women are deprived of money and being abused through money manipulation. And, it is so true is this inability to actually leave this environment. When did you say, okay, right, I'm going to save money. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get out. When was that moment where you said, okay, right, this is inside. I can actually do this. What was the emotions going through your head at that time? Because was there maybe a part of you that said, oh, no, I'm not going to do it?
Yeah, it does come. It does dip in, I'm not going to do it. It's quiet. It's peaceful. I don't think the word emotion existed in that stage.
Sure.
I recall afterwards working with a coach on an emotional directory because I didn't know how to identify emotions in my body. I went into a kind of numbing mode where I just existed. And my emotions were in the back burner because I knew I needed to do what I needed to do. And I couldn't be led emotionally. But also when you've been hurt so much and you've been broken so much, then you become numb, you become emotionless. So I can't tell you, yay, I was excited, I'm going to go, It was heartbreaking all the time because I was walking away from my dream. And we had dreams together, and I was walking away from that. And I knew it was going to be hard. So, there was no emotions. I don't think I could even say that I was absolutely ready.
Sure.
I wasn't absolutely ready.
Wow.
But I knew it was time. I knew when it was time.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it's, having a knife to your neck is already one of the most dangerous points to be. There's no other way. You got to get out.
you've got to get out. But I mean, I don't want to say this lightly, but it's like the physical violence was just a part of it, Carmen. It was just, it was the emotional, the financial, the psychological, the spiritual,
Sure.
the name calling. I mean, I was huge. I was probably like a size 44 dress size. So he would call me a whale, and I became that physically. So I looked different. I protected myself, the best way that I could. And I kind of just became huge and huge, so that, it was my protection. It was my protection.
Who was the first person you called?
I think it was my sister. It was probably a sister of mine, yeah.
And when you told them the story, what was their response?
They kind of had a sense that it was happening. But they also tried, to talk to me, and I wouldn't listen, They did say, come away. And I did sometimes, have these, what do you call it? Separations, and then come back, and separations and come back, So, but when it was time, it was time. Yeah.
I want to go back to corporate.
Mm.
Have you ever walked in there where you had to cover yourself up with makeup and, nobody knows what's going on, or you're having a bad day at work, but you're also having a bad day at home? Like, talk us through that.
So I was in corporate and going to... So Estee Lauder Double Wear is great cover up. And sadly, I would sometimes put it on my very young children to go to school. Yeah, I did. So nobody knew. I knew I was terrified. I knew I had to keep my job, because if I lost my job, then there was no way out for me or my boys. And medical, and all the benefits of that as well. And so I was in corporate with the makeup, with the heartache, with being deprived from even eating, in my own home.
Yeah.
So it was heartbreaking. But I would put on a mask, and that's why, it was a mask. It was exhausting.
I can imagine.
It was exhausting. Ooh. And in that time, I think I worked 2 or 3 jobs. I would try and sell my crafts, or cook, or sell my food, or do something to start building up extra income, because my salary wasn't enough. So I was always exhausted. Always exhausted. Yeah.
So, do you have a poem in your book that you can read to us now that summarizes that moment you left the door, the moment that you said, and I want you to think about it, and the moment that you were on the other side of this journey?
Yes.
Will you read it for us?
Yes, sure. Yeah, it's a funny thing, because you stop dreaming and you stop feeling, and then when you come to that place again, you get excited about who you are and what your dreams are, and it's called The Calling. And this speaks about purpose, and making a difference in the world. Ever loved something so fiercely that you would leap out for it at a moment's notice, to answer its call, to follow its lead. It's the one thing that arrests your body. It captures your thoughts. And in your dreams, you have gone there time and time again, distant yet familiar. You know that you know that you know. It's the one whisper, the one question, over and over in your soul, gently knocking, always waiting. It is the calling that will get you out of the boat to walk onto the fluid sea, with a fierce passion to reach the other side. A heart that will not turn back, counting not the cost, breaking the chains of mediocrity, leaving the safety of the boat, to walk into greatness, silencing the voices that warn of your drowning, knowing only that you have to walk that sea, to answer the call. A mustard seed of faith, a little courage to answer the constant knocking, growing louder and louder now. This is the call. This is the whisper that only you can answer, that you know you must answer. You know it. It is the reason you are here. And only you can answer this call.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And there's so much thoughts going through my head as I'm listening to it. We're always talking about purpose, and for somebody that purpose could be just to get me and my kids out of this mess. And that purpose is big enough. And having that faith of a mustard seed, and that something wonderful is about to happen to me. Something exists here.
Yes.
I don't know what it is,
yes.
but I have to believe, and I have to show my children this is a moment that we need to believe. So very, very well done on that big milestone. I want to almost take it a step back and talk about the kids. Growing up in a house of gender-based violence, and as much as you tried to do whatever you could to protect your children and of them not seeing those moments happened, what was the impact on both of your children? And talk me through that journey.
I think that's the saddest part about this journey, is the impact on me, but also on the boys, that they lost their dad. Firstly, it was very sad. Because he did not do any maintenance, didn't stay in touch. We would probably have to search for him if we had to look for him. But both of them have very different personalities. And my oldest child, my younger son, became very reclusive, very quiet, and over-compliant. And he struggled. He struggled with education. He struggled with the learning disabilities, that kind of thing. My older son, who's I think we have a very similar personality. At the end of this, he was around 12 going on 13. He went missing for 2 days. So I'm one of those moms with a missing child's poster. Not once, but twice.
Sure.
So, I always say, I raised boys who raised hell. Because what happened was he went missing and literally could not find him. So the pink ladies, the police, everybody, the church, everybody was searching. Eventually, I found him through social media, incidentally. And when we brought him home, when he came home, he sat at the bottom of my bed and he said words that I don't think any parent wants to hear, but it changed the trajectory of my life forever. He was 12 years old. He said, "Mom, help me. I'm on heroin." And,
and that's the hardcore drug to be on.
Yes, it was hardcore. And he had been dabbling since he was about 10.
Sure.
So you can imagine, because I put it down to sort of, preteen kind of behavior, hormones, losing jackets. In the meantime, he was selling his things, losing tackies, losing jackets, sleeping in late. I wasn't connecting the dots that this child had gotten
obviously
into trouble.
You've never done this before, so you wouldn't know. Yeah.
I'm a social drinker. I don't smoke. I live in suburbia. We are the northern suburb, typical Christian kind of family, going to private schools. And all of those things. I was ticking all the boxes, and this was a complete and utter shock to my system. The one thing about addiction is that it doesn't look at your class, it doesn't look at your race, and it's not caused by bad parenting. I can tell you that. Although this was a ripple effect, because my son will tell you, he found the drugs to numb the pain.
Sure.
Numb the pain. Yeah.
And what was the journey like to try and get him healed? Was this? How old was he when you left home?
So, look, I wish I could tell you it was a quick fix, because then I went here, we did this 21-day program, he was all better, I got my son back, Bob's your uncle. Unfortunately, it wasn't. It was a 10-year journey, 7 long-term rehabs, including schooling, as well as 4 psychiatric hospitals, long-term, and again, stints with the courts and the run-in with the laws and things like that. But it was also, I think this is the most heartbreaking stuff, 22 times that he nearly died because of an overdose. He was picked up off the street and put into on life support at a public hospital, and you get a call to say, there's a John Doe here. We've got this number, but there's a John Doe. Somebody left this number in his pocket or whatever it was. And
sure, that must have been hectic.
Yeah. 10 years. It was, I won't say hectic, it was hell. It was sheer hell for somebody that you love so dearly to go through such such turmoil. And then the angst of navigating that, not knowing what to do. Experts don't even really have all the answers, But I was very grateful for the teams that came alongside me. I mean, there were always people, police and social workers and court systems and doctors and, friends and family.
Look, you have really learned to work the legal system in the back end, from divorce all the way through to this. I'm like, oh my word.
Yes.
Hey?
Yes.
But I recall at the table of 12 when you were talking about your son, there was a time where, you were very hopeful and everything is just like, has happened the way that it was. And then that moment happened and the fear that you don't know if he's made it or he's alive. Talk us through that.
He ran away from the last rehab and he was over 18 at that stage. And at that time I decided, listen, I'm not going to chase him. I did try to look for him. But I wasn't going to chase him down because he was an adult now. And he knew that, that there was no way that he could come home if he was still high. It wasn't an easy decision to make. It meant that I didn't know whether he was dead or alive, whether he was on the streets or not. And I wish I could say it was just like, he'll be 2 weeks on the street and he'll get a scare and he'll come back home because really, But it wasn't like that. He was on there for almost a year and became, the street swallows you up. It has its own creed. It has its own, they name you a different name. So he was known by a different name on the street. So there was no way of connecting my son to the street addict, come thug, come, I don't want to say drug lord, but druggie.
Yeah.
And I did try in that year I would go every week to the streets with sandwiches,
Sure.
And I did try to carry on living, but it was tough.
I can imagine. And also, it's, you always hear, and when you watch it on movies or you hear people's stories of never enabling a drug addict. How does that make you feel? Like as a mother that has gone through this journey for so long, like it can't be easy.
No, it can't be easy. But I have to tell you, it was a pivotal point in my life when I realized that, because he was so little, I was always, the principal of the school had my number on speed dial. I knew that the community police could phone me at any time, that kind of thing. But I was always covering up for him because he was my child. It was his friends. If he just changed company, if he would join different people, I had so many excuses for the bad behavior because I just didn't want to believe. I was in a state of shock. I didn't want to believe that somebody could be this way, because when he was in drugs, he went into psychosis almost and he became a very different person. And so you have something I call living grief in my book. Wow. Where there's a shadow of the person that you love, but they've disappeared. They've disappeared completely. And I remember going through a support group and then seeing a counselor I'll never forget. And she looked at me and she said to me, "But Mom, your love is killing your child." Okay, at that stage, I thought, if I could just clap this chick, I would. But I was angry. I was so angry. But when the anger settled, I realized that much of what I was doing was enabling him. And I had to stop. And I had to set some real tough boundaries. Reality was that the only person that I could control at this stage was myself. And I had to go on my own healing journey of codependency, which is, and to address my own codependency, which had then a ripple effect on my son. Because it's not humanly possible for me as a mom, Indian mom, to lock the gate. To lock the gate. In fact, I want to read this to you because this is what it's like. Because, food is such an important part of our culture. And, I had to embrace a new normal, which wasn't easy at all. Wasn't easy at all. It's called supermarket aisle. Supermarkets are the worst. How can I eat, not knowing if you were hungry? I had been on the streets again, armed with sandwiches, in exchange for a word that you were alive. Have you seen him? Have you seen my boy? Sorry. Maybe this ham and cheese would somehow reach you. But today I wander down this aisle, slowly and fragile. This pain would not go. heavy, it pushed into me, white-knuckled, holding onto the trolley, so afraid that the supermarket aisle, filled with your favorites, would swallow me into a vortex of no return. Had you eaten today, I wondered, picking up a packet of your favorite biscuits, as if it would give me the answer I so desperately needed to hear. Aching for the sound of your laughter, mind games were real. I turn and see you running down the supermarket aisle, into my arms, a small child again. Teardrops fall freely now. I remember, you see. Putting down the biscuits. I remember. Heroin was now your mother. You had chosen her.
Oh.
And that's the grief that I had to live with.
Sure. And I can't imagine what it must be to go through such a journey. I believe I recall you were talking about an incident where I think he came to the house and you had to set that boundary.
I had to, yeah, he'd been in he'd been somewhere and somebody had put a gun into his mouth and the gun had jammed and he was really traumatized. He was so traumatized. And I closed the gate. Remember, I'd locked the doors. God, all I wanted to do was put my arms around him and say that it was going to be okay, but he was high. And, keeping boundaries in that space and that time, not only to protect him and to protect my other son and myself, because he had held us hostage. He had hurt us quite a lot physically as well. But to hold boundaries, I had written my boundaries down and I would read them.
Wow.
I would read them to myself because in those moments, you actually can't think logically. There's no logic. There's no logic. So I'd written them down. And one of the things that I wrote down was love him the way that he needed to be loved. And he needed me to love him in this way in order for him to choose life.
Who was there for you through this journey?
Yeah, I think my friends, my family were there to a certain degree. I leaned heavily onto, my faith as well as support groups as well. Because, the last thing you want to do is go to a braai or go to work and just manipulate the conversation with all your drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to suck the life out of people and then people kind of shy away from you. So I had spaces where I could go and I could vent and I could drop and I could cry and then I would come away because there were so many other facets to who I was.
Yeah.
There was no way this was going to be my identity.
Yeah.
I didn't use the drugs. I was fighting for my life.
Yeah.
I was fighting for my own life in the struggle.
Yeah. Because it just seems like this. How long was this journey? I mean, if you from beginning to end.
10 years, 10 years and 13 years with the abuse. So 23 years
my goodness.
Of hell and trauma and consistent trauma. Do you know what that does to the brain? So, yeah.
How did you find your identity after that? Like, who am I really behind this trauma? Like, I almost listen to your story and I'm like, what a brave, if you believe in soul contracts, like what a brave thing it is to have chosen this journey. And what lessons do you think you were supposed to learn during this journey? What did it teach you about yourself?
I guess coming into my identity is a sense of becoming, and it's something that we do every day. It's a conscious choice not to be a victim.
Yeah.
Not to be who I could easily just faint and it would be okay. Yeah. It's understandable, right? If I could check out of life. Because, I had my own history with mental health and you can't not get depressed.
Oh, no.
That kind of thing. So I had all of that. But I guess for me, it was understanding that I was more than that. I was bigger than that. And choosing that I always had a choice, and I wanted to choose well for myself because I had worth, I had value. And I wasn't going to surrender. I wasn't going to surrender it to these circumstances. I wasn't going to surrender it. So I kind of did the opposite,
Yeah. I almost listened to your story now, you never know what journey somebody is walking and what a person is going through. But it also gives you a sense of hope that on the other side of all of this, you can get through things, and there can be joy, and there can be laughter.
Yes.
And, talk to us about your son, how his life has transformed now. Where is he at? And as a family, where are you?
So my son is 8 years sober. 8 years sober, and I make that disclaimer because recovery is a daily thing. So I'm very humble about that fact. It is a journey that we do every single day together. He is back home. He's married. He has 2 children. And my grandson, he was born during COVID, and I was invited into the room to witness his birth and to go through that with them. For the first year my son was back, there was no verbal apology. The only apology I would accept was changed behavior. We didn't do any broadcast. We didn't share the story. We just cocooned as a family. It was tough. My younger son left home because he thought I'd lost the plot to bring back the street hooligan. But my son is now working in he's working in a corporate.
Oh, well done.
He's studied. He's studying. He's actually studying right now as well. His third qualification, third program. He's paying for his own studying. He went back to the courts and he did consequences. So we did restorative justice with the courts. We agreed that he wouldn't have a record, but I was adamant that he would have consequences for that behavior. There was no getting away with it. So it would mean that he would need to go through a process with the court, which we did do. It also meant that, he literally, I think a month ago, bought his first brand new car.
Oh my word.
And I went
Lots
there.
of celebrations going on.
Lots of celebrations, but seeing him being a father again, seeing him love on his family the way he does, being a responsible adult and giving me monetary gifts for Father's Day, like this deposit in my account, fairly large. And I'm like, what's this for? And he was like, Mom, we don't have a dad, but you were always there.
Wow.
And so I just burst into tears,
No.
And he does cute little things, that are really joyful. We live in a multi-generational home, which is challenging in itself, but it's also just so beautiful. It's also just so beautiful. And sometimes I remember I would be working in my office and then there's yellow flowers in the window and he's below the windowsill is this boy, holding out a bouquet of yellow flowers, or he'd arrive at my gate with coffee and croissants. I love chocolate croissants, croissants, just so that I have a nice day, It has
just changed into such a beautiful human.
No, he didn't. He just excavated into such a beautiful human. He was always there. That's where the hope was. He was always there. I always saw him.
And that you knew.
I knew.
We're gonna bring you back.
You are my boy. Oh. You are made in God's image. You are mine. And I love that. As much as you've been through all of that hell, I poured love in. I was here. I've never left. And that is true love. And I think, from a learning perspective, that is true love. Because if you just think about the fact that as parents, we second guess ourselves so much.
Yeah.
I don't have well done, Mom. I don't have matric dances and graduations and all the normal things that people went through. And, he was such a good, avid sports person. And we lost that as well. But guess what? He is now he's competing professionally in powerlifting. So one of those guys that pulls those 4x4s and bench press. And he's competing professionally in that space. So
well done.
But you know what? Sure. To get your body back.
Sure.
After 10 years of heroin, and to get your mind out of the mindset that, because let me tell you, the street gives you respect, it gives you money, it gives you weapons. And those things came to my door after he came home.
Sure.
They came to fetch him. And he had to refuse it.
Oh, my goodness.
They do come. They come to your door. So it's there. It's real. And to change your mindset, remember he grew up thinking, I'm a thug. You know what I mean? And to change that
Shame,
mindset is a big shift. So I'm very, very excited that we've been able to do this work as a family of reconciliation. It's been hard. It's been hard. I've had to play facilitator. I've had to play coach for two brothers who couldn't see eye to eye. I mean, you think about Jared. He paid such a price. You know, there were times where I would get a call and Jared is in tears. What happened, Jay? Joshua sold my entire wardrobe of clothes. It's empty. And for a teenage boy, that's a lot, you know. Would you mind if I read that poem?
Of course.
You know?
And I also just want us to be clear, like, you and your son are really turning your pain into purpose and using your story to empower others.
To help others. We will, yeah. So one of the things is boy in the back seat. There is a boy in the back seat, quiet and anxious. He shares his mother's fears. Will we find him? Driving hours on end, this boy has no playtime, no friends to contend. Instead, his life is wasting away. The boy in the back seat, looking out for the shape of his brother's cap, under bridges along the road, can we see him? It's late now, and his childlike eyes begin to tire. He knows his mother won't go home, not yet, not until she has him. He curls up, anxious, scared, alone, and sleep takes him away into a darkness. A nightmare comes true. For him, there is no escape. When will she look back, he wonders. When will she notice? I am waiting for my mother's holy love. She is spread so thin. I must be patient. I, too, am waiting to live beyond this addiction-crippled family. I, too, am waiting to live. I, too, am alive.
Oh, I have to say something to you. I just think you have such a gift
Thank you.
Of sharing your story through poetry and capturing those moments and those emotions behind the story. Because I think the hardest thing for us as human beings is to deal with our emotions.
Yeah.
And that I think that, you know, from the moment you started reading some of these poems, I've gone through internally, I've gone through these up and downs, going on the journey with you. And there's a particular part in our conversation that's really coming to the forefront is when you said your children never got to see you carefree and hear you laugh and be you. Talk me through that moment where you just realized I can be my carefree mother. I'm actually, for some people don't even realize what a privilege that is. And for you, this is like the biggest thing that you've always wanted to do for your children is just be you in front of your kids. I mean, like, it's bizarre. We talk about authenticity here a lot and authentic leadership, but that you can't even be yourself at home.
Yeah.
That is so stressful and so, as you said, it's hell. But there was a moment somewhere in your journey where you could just be you. What was that moment like when you all realized, this is mom?
I guess it kind of came in the last 7 years or so. If I have to really be honest, I mean, it has been in snippets, but in the last 7 years, we kind of just became completely unguarded because suddenly we realized, hey, we're okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to be, it's going to be okay. We've got each other. And, we always love our family. We don't always like them. Now we like each other. We want to spend time together. We want to be there for each other. And there's no holds barred. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to be joyful. It's a beautiful thing to be carefree, to be guilt-free. I think as parents, we carry so much guilt, even traveling or having a corporate job or, just being away from home and your kids. And I remember something we always did. We said we would happy miss each other when we were away from each other. Because when I traveled for work and things, I said, no, we're going to happy miss each other. You have an adventure and I have an adventure and we're going to come back. And, oftentimes parents say, oh, I'm working for you. I'm working for my kids so I can give them a better life and, blah, blah. And I never said that. I said I work because I love it. And I hope one day you're going to have the same thing, that you're going to have passion in what you do, and that you're going to have work that gives you meaning, that gives your life meaning. Because you can't spend 8 to 12 hours a day being miserable and then come home and take that misery out on your family.
Yeah.
And be resentful to them, you know. And being able to be unguarded meant that we had to face our emotions, all the dark ones and the light ones. And that's the gift of recovery, right? You've got to look at yourself every day. You've got to face that every day. And you've got to be brave enough to do that. Most of us, we numb our emotions. We have this hole in our soul caused by something in our lives. And we numb. We drink a lot, we work a lot, we party a lot, whatever. We have sugar, we shop a lot. It's different things for different people. But when you start to look at yourself in the mirror and really face yourself and look, I mean, there's ugly parts and good parts, but you embrace it all. Then you truly accept who you are, and you accept who your children are. And you know, that was one of the things I really appreciated, because my boys wrote, there's a chapter in here called Voices of My Children. And my boys wrote an endorsement for this book and a part of their story, because I was worried about that, you know. I was worried about that. And I thought, if I don't get it right at home, and if I'm not who I say I am, and if I don't walk my talk at home, there is no way I'm going to be a good leader, I'm going to be a good community shifter, that I'm going to change this world. I've got to get it right at home. That's my yardstick. And if they can't endorse me, then I'm not putting this book out there. I'm not putting any message out there. And so it's not easy. It's not easy, because a lot of us can be somebody else in the boardroom. But to be that same person in every sphere of our life, it's liberating. I don't wear masks, you know. Yeah. I don't wear masks.
And I think you also appreciate the power of being you, and at what sacrifice it had to come, not having that for 23 years. I mean, yes. That is a huge, huge sacrifice. And I just want to applaud you for your bravery, your tenacity, and also your heart. You know, many people probably, you know, would say, oh, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this situation. This is really too much. But to still have an open heart during this process, you know, they say the longest journey is the journey from the head to the heart, that we need to take through life. And you have clearly chosen heart over logic.
Yeah.
In this particular journey. And if you could say anything to your former husband, what would you say to him if you had to meet eyes with him?
You, Carmen? I would say that I forgive you. That it wasn't right, but I forgive you. And that you've missed the best years with your children.
Sure.
He missed all of it, as messy and hard as it was. He's missed it. And he's missing grandchildren, which is such a blessing and such a joy. And my life is richer for it. And yeah, and I wish him well. And I wish him well in his journey, because his boys, it stopped with the boys. They are not carrying on that cycle. They're not carrying on that cycle.
Beautiful.
And, you know, I wish him well.
And it takes a lot to forgive. So forgiveness is a tricky thing for me. I find forgiveness to be a very tricky thing, and I think it doesn't come with a clock.
No, it doesn't come with a clock, and it comes in waves, like grief does. But it's just like I have made a conscious choice to squeeze the marrow out of life. You know, I have nearly been dead so many times that I can't not want to live. So even when life is hard or heartachy, and there are days that I write about in my book, it's called Joy is My Warfare.
Oh, that's stunning. I love that.
Joy, so it's not a weak thing. It's not a weak thing. I'm not soft and fuzzy, you know. So joy is my warfare, and I would choose it. Hope is my warfare. When everything was carrying on and going on, I was like doing stuff in communities like Eldorado Park in Soweto, working with over 200 people, working with police and social workers and faith workers and parents to bring people, to reconcile people in a space where I couldn't save my own son. There were 200 children that I put back into homes. There were 75 that went into rehabs. There's 12 boys that lived in something called a honchi, which is a trap house on the streets, have all been reconciled with their families. And they send me videos saying, hey, Mom, they call me Ma Ford on the street. Ma Ford, I'm fat, I'm working, that was my antidepressant, because I refused, even though I couldn't save my son, even though he wouldn't listen to me. There were other mothers out there. I have been to the courtrooms. I've advocated for children that are not my own.
Sure.
So, yeah, I guess it's a mother's heart. But I just know that if I can have this wholehearted way of life, that people can, that healing is possible, that joy is possible, even when life is tough.
What I love about your story is you took your pain and you turned it into purpose. And now you're doing heart work. And it might be a tough journey because it drains a lot out of you, I'm sure. And you're dealing with very tough cases that you need to be involved with. How do people work with you? Like, take me through like the work that you're currently doing. And for our audience, how could they potentially work with you?
So I work with any kind of organization, to be honest with you. So I do a keynote in which I do really engaging conversations that are real stuff. We also do a keynote together, my son and I. And we've been on Espresso Show and a whole lot of other things. But we do a keynote together that's called The Flip Side of the Coin. And so it's called No Bars Held. So you can ask anything and you get two sides, two perspectives and two sides of the story. Because in this book, I don't tell my story, I tell my son's story. I tell my story, not my son's. That's his to own, his to tell. And so really, you can do that. I also work with families and I work on coaching individuals, because when you're in this, you can't change the addict. But in your own journey, how do you work with that? So I'm an integral life coach, and I work with corporates as well as individuals in the coaching space. And of course, you can contact me on my website, which is nishaniford.com.
I think just to take it a notch down, like integral life coach, what does that really mean? And take me for examples of how you would work with a corporate, like what are some of the work that you're doing right now?
Okay, so some of the work that I'm doing right now is that I work with executives who are transitioning into management levels, who are transitioning from middle management into senior or in an executive level. And integral life coaching works with the mind, body, and the somatic as well. And we work on I design a specialized program to assist people in journeying into their leadership journey in a courageous way, in a brave way, in an authentic way, that makes sense to them, but also serves them in their journey as they grow as individuals. So I work with a few corporates, work with in the nonprofit sector as well, globally. So I work with international INGOs as well.
Phenomenal. I just can I give you a hug? I don't know if that's, I'm going to give you a hug. I'm going to give you a hug. Oh, I just want to say, so show me, okay, let me take your book. I forgot to bring mine. So if you want to order a copy of this book, beautifully written, you can just go to your website, right?
My name, Nishani Ford.
Okay, I'll put the link below. But it will really open up your heart in so many ways. I just want to say thank you so much for being so vulnerable, telling your story, and I wish nothing but the best for you. You deserve it. You have carried the cross back and forth, and it's your time to rise now. It's your time to do wonderful things out there, and the world is going to need you. And I have this thing where I said there's a lot of us going through a journey in life right now where we're asking all the questions, and there's a lot of people that are living the answers right now.
Yeah,
and I think that there's a calling upon us going through the questions and living through this stage of asking a lot of questions, because we are going to be the answers for the time when people actually start going through hard times in the future. And I call it light workers.
Yes,
but I believe like we all have a duty. Sometimes we are sent ahead of the journey so that we can open up the door and be the lighthouse. And you are definitely a lighthouse.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Carmen.
Anyway, that is a wrap. If this didn't pull on your heartstrings and didn't take you on an emotional roller coaster, then I don't know what will, because this has really been really tough to listen to, but also gives you so much hope that at the end of this, there is light in the end of a tunnel, no matter how hard or how difficult it is. And if you are a person that is going through a very tough season, also remember, everything is seasonal. Things come to an end and new seasons come for you to blossom. So I wish nothing but the best for you. Stay resilient, stay strong, stay courageous, and lead audacious inside out. Thank you. Bye-bye now.